Somewhere men are laughing, and somewhere children shout. But there is no joy in Mudville. Mighty Casey has sung!
I only got one thing to say to you. Strike this mother out.
2-2. He got it! A perfect game! It was done by the king!
Hey, you! How you like them apples?
Took away a game-tying home run for Manny Ramirez.
That's my thing, fellas.
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for visiting us this evening.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Mudville Podcast.
It's Mudville.
I am one of your hosts, Nolan Rabine,
I'm the other one, Brody Stout.
and today we're
How
going to
you
be
doing?
talking about the wild card and divisional series. Before we get into all that, though, I do have a lot of thoughts that I'd like to share at the top of this episode, and conveniently that starts by plugging the Patreon that we just started a couple weeks ago. Patreon.com/Mudville. I shared an essay or letter or whatever you want to call it.
It's a treatise.
On there yesterday that
It's a manifesto.
that's good. Yeah, I don't know. You know what? I would be okay with that, but I feel like
It's got
manifestos,
such a bad rap as a word.
they're now associated with like school shooters instead
Yeah.
of communists.
Yeah.
So
Detailed your thoughts on. Please go on.
detailed my thoughts just on setting up the Patreon itself, sort of a why this and why not now, as well as general discomfort that I feel asking anybody for money, especially when our podcast is still so new.
Yeah. I can only ask people for money jokingly, i.e. 5 seconds ago.
Yeah. Basically, the main reason for why it feels necessary now remains the deterioration of social media and information online as a whole, and the need for a singular platform to consolidate all of our work. And that goes beyond just Twitter. The reason I wanted to share that, just today, Facebook recommended this page to me that appears to be an AI-generated fan page for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson.
Which that's already just, you're starting off at a bad spot.
Somewhere in Mark Zuckerberg's algorithm, it was decided that I, Nolan Rabine, probably have a vested interest in the filmography of The Rock.
And it was right.
And would like to engage with more rock-related content in my free time.
Rock 10.
Putting all that aside for a second, here's what the post actually said. It's a photograph of the aforementioned Mr. Johnson and his wife. You see him on some red carpet that's cropped out, and he's wearing a suit. It's all purple. It makes him look exactly like Grimace, the McDonald's hamburger blob. And the caption on this photograph reads, "Dwayne Johnson welcomes daughter, Agent 007 Daniel Craig." And that's it. There's no link, nothing.
Sure.
If, like me, you're at a loss for words having heard that, know that this sent me down more of a rabbit hole than it deserved to. By the way, this post has 7,000 likes.
Disgusting.
So I wanted to know
Were
if
those
there-
all AIs? Because if not, I'm really worried.
I don't know, man. That
Very
I've been thinking
concerned.
about it ever since I saw it. I wanted to know if there was even a kernel of truth in this post that Facebook, again, specifically wanted me to see. Like, maybe The Rock had a daughter recently, and maybe the algorithm threw in Daniel Craig's name by accident or something. But I don't even believe that that's the case. Dwayne Johnson's wife isn't pregnant in this picture, and he does have a couple daughters, but I don't think that either of them were born this year or that.
Were they in the picture?
recent- No.
Okay.
This was just a collection of words and names from other headlines paired with a random photograph of an A-list actor. I put that in quotes.
Right.
And slapped onto
No,
a
he's
Facebook
he's an
page for all to
A-lister.
see. Well,
He's an A-lister. Everybody knows who The Rock is.
What
if
have
you
you
say The
seen
Rock,
him in?
everybody from your youngest cousin to your oldest grandparent knows who The Rock is.
He's an A-list celebrity, but I hesitate to call him an actor. Name 3 The Rock movies.
Fast and Furious 5, Fast 6, Fast 7, Fast 8, Fast 9, Fast 10, and...
This is a great bit.
And
I'm sure everyone's loving it.
and Journey to the Center of the Earth.
Okay. Regardless, this is worse than like bottom of the barrel content. It's not even anything.
It's not content.
It's
engagement farming.
People are looking at this.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing stuff like it everywhere, just pure junk meant to fill up the screen so it looks like some of these sites are active. And then it becomes an issue, like you said, of engagement farming and keeping these users on the site and keeping them active. And then these like snake oil salesmen, tech developers become inclined to flood the market with ads and keep the mill churning and maximize a dying profit margin for as long as they can. And that leads to not only elderly, vulnerable people being preyed on by right-wing disinformation campaigns, but also apparently this new phenomenon of AI news content that I truly can only compare to like sludge or mold, maybe hot dog water. I don't know what to make of any of this. It truly blew my mind seeing that post had 7,000 likes this morning.
That's really scary.
The end game, of course, of that point being that the reliability of social media is being targeted by the billionaire class. Personally, just on a more serious note, I've had a terrible 2 weeks on Twitter, just first starting with the murder of a left-wing organizer and activist outside of a wedding and just right here in Brooklyn a couple weeks ago.
Luckily, I dodged all of this. I'm glad I did.
I wish
Caught
I
the
had,
edge of
man.
it.
I rubbernecked the entire situation, and I probably shouldn't have, but it was like one of those things where I felt like an obligation to look, just because the girlfriend in that situation, her friends, it uplifted me seeing the community that formed around her and all of the people who did everything in their power to keep this bubble of right-wing hatred and doxing and harassment and the worst moment of this woman's life away from her. And I can only hope that they were successful, and I can only hope that she's doing okay now. But following this for days made me really feel like I have a much better look into the hearts of my enemies, and they don't exist. And then, of course, the week after, the rampant misinformation that's just been everywhere on the destabilized Twitter, culminating in the President of the United States falsely claiming that he saw fictional photographs of beheaded children. Trigger warning, I guess, but it's not real. So I don't know what to make of any of this, but it feels like in the past couple of weeks we've gone from tides turning in a bad direction to somewhere much more violent and insidious and truly something evil here at the heart of the internet, and I'm really not liking it.
So, recapping some wildcard series, the NLDS, the ALDS, some crazy stuff happened in the world of baseball since we've last talked, which was a little bit ago at this point.
Week and a half.
Yeah, lots been going on. We want to jump us in?
Sure. So every wildcard series was a 2-0 sweep.
How fun.
The Texas Rangers swept the Tampa Bay Rays. The Philadelphia Phillies swept the Miami Marlins. The Minnesota Twins swept the Toronto Blue Jays. The Arizona Diamondbacks swept the Milwaukee Brewers.
Called it. So I went 4 for 4.
Nice.
Just want to put that out there.
Well done. These series felt as uncompetitive as they ended up being.
Yep.
The Rays have scored just 1 run in their past 3 postseason games. If you date back to last year, they, with that series against the Cleveland Guardians, it's now been 2 straight postseasons where the Rays offense looked like a 5th place team had to show up instead. It's certainly true this year that they didn't have all of their pitching. Shane McClanahan, Jeffrey Springs, Drew Rasmussen, Shane Boz, and then their generational shortstop turned out to allegedly be a pedophile. And so, as beaten up as this team was, I mean, their postseason failures, I think, have reached the point where it's fair diagnose the Rays' problem as organizational rather than a case of repeated bad luck.
Yeah, well, that's hard to say. I honestly would argue that is bad luck.
Well, it's a little of both.
Outside of Wander Franco, that's not luck. That's him being a piece of shit, allegedly.
But what I'm saying, organizationally, the Rays' strategy, payroll especially, is not built to win. It's a very
that argument is definitely
cynical method of baseball.
It's definitely a very salient argument because you could argue, look at the teams who are left in the Phillies, even the Diamondbacks, I guess, like in their top tier young talent, the way that they're built. You have a lot of teams who have a lot of stars and they'll have a lot of top tier high end talent. The Rays obviously don't go out and spend on high end top tier talent. That being said, their injuries are really hard to overlook. I think if they have a healthy pitching staff, that's a very, very different series. And if their lineup was complete, that's also a very different series. Like I remember one of those games, I don't remember which one, but I think it was game 2. The announcers were talking about how Yandy Diaz was feeling a lot of pressure because he was the only guy there basically who is known to bring the offense. And not that Randy Arozarena is not a great hitter, but Yandy Diaz is really like the guy if you're looking for offense in that lineup of what was left. So it's hard to say that this is just complete organizational failure when this is also a team who, consistently just wins and wins and wins in the regular season. They have a proven winning formula. It's just that in the postseason, it's the same problem the Yankees have. It's the same problem the Dodgers have. It's just the offense disappears. So whether that's organizational or it's just a thing within baseball, within certain, maybe it's just the players that you have or something, because the two teams I just named are the two top payroll teams in the league other than the Mets. So it's that argument can be made. I don't think I fully agree with it.
I think that the Rays construction this year was very different from some of the other teams that were either eliminated in the first round or that we'll see were just bounced in the divisional series this week. Some of those teams like the Braves and the Orioles, those teams had top to bottom elite lineups that were destroying the league all year. And then, like you said, the offense just went cold in the postseason. I don't think that the Rays really had that. I mean, if you look at their lineup, it's a lot of, platoon guys, a lot of righties who hit left-handed pitching well. They've got Isaac Paredes, Harold Ramirez, got, Luke Raley, Josh Lowe on the other side of the plate. So it's these guys that,
Harold Ramirez.
They think they're going to play these, matchups, but then they face Jordan Montgomery in postseason, and none of their right-handed hitters can touch him. And they face Evaldi, none of their left-handed hitters can touch him.
Right.
And it's what if this Rangers team had Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer? We can do all of these what ifs for the Rays.
What if they had Jacob deGrom? I don't know how much Scherzer
fair
has
enough.
left, but yeah.
But it's you can do all these what if scenarios for the Rays. The Rangers are in the same boat, and they dominated not only that series, but they went on into the ALDS and they swept the Orioles too. They have the best lineup in the American League, and it looks like they're not showing any signs of slowing down, and their lineup is only going to get better next year with the addition of Wyatt Langford. But
yeah, mine on the Rangers is just these guys can freaking hit. They are so good top to bottom. I mean, that offense is scary, and I'll get into details more later when we talk about the division series. But yeah, I mean, a banged up Rays team I don't think really stood a chance in this series at all. They ran into it, honestly, who looks like this year to be a juggernaut. So it's just the way it goes sometimes. I don't think that this should cause some massive shift in organizational philosophy for these guys. Maybe just don't have a shortstop who's a pedophile in the future. I don't know. Well, I wouldn't be shocked if the Rays have a great regular season again next year and then something similar happens. But yeah.
Junior Caminero and Carson Williams, 18 and up. I would say 21, but they themselves are 20, so that'd be a little strange.
That's freaky. My God.
Anyway, The Toronto Blue Jays made it 2 American League East teams that got swept right out of the wild card, losing both games to the Twins. I feel like there are so many similarities to be drawn between Tampa and Toronto, and yet at the same time, they feel so completely different.
Very different teams.
Like, the Blue Jays are built on this supposedly dynastic offense that was built to be among the best in the league, and for years it looked like that would be the case. Vladdy and Bo Bichette are certainly the two like long-term pieces, but you've got guys like Springer. They brought in Brandon Belt, play first base, veterans like Whit Merrifield, Matt Chapman. You'd think that offense would be able to compete in the postseason, as was the case with Tampa. You look back at the last 2 years that these teams have been in the playoffs, and it's not good. The Blue Jays had that catastrophic blown lead to Seattle last year.
Was awesome.
Right on the same day.
So cool.
It was really cool. Right on the same day as the Rays were getting shut out by Cleveland's pitching. Now, this year, both teams get bounced again. In their elimination game, the Blue Jays got 9 hits, but 8 of them were singles. They didn't score any runs, didn't string anything together. Major controversy from this series, of course, was Jose Berrios being pulled after 3 innings, 1 turn through the order. They went to the lefty with Yusei Kikuchi, and it did not work. He promptly gave up 2 runs. The Blue Jays could not get back into the game, and their season ended. This has led to a bunch of discourse about whether it was a front office decision to pull Berrios or whether it was the manager, John Schneider, who made the call. It does look now like it might have been the latter option there, that the manager did pull Berrios himself. He saw the second time through the order stats get a lot worse, saw some talented left-handed hitters coming up to the plate maybe.
I have a lot of thoughts
work.
on this that might derail the conversation. So go ahead first, and then I'll hop in.
Basically, the last thing that I was going to say about it was, so now, of course, so many people are using this as a springboard to go on another diatribe against analytics, which I put in quotes because analytics is a word that has ended up being used as an all-encompassing term for things that boomers don't particularly like.
Sure. Now, let me hop in here because I side with the boomers on this one.
Okay.
Surprisingly. And not in that I hate analytics, again, quote unquote. That's not a thing to hate. That's saying that you hate data. That makes no sense. That's not what I'm saying. I hate decisions that are driven by data where the human element far outweighs the implications of what the data suggests. And that is the issue that I think baseball has to kind of reckon with right now. Because I believe that decision to pull Berrios was not only on Schneider. From what I gather from a lot of different sports talk shows and from columnists or whatever, the way that these decisions work is the front office hands down a lot of information and says this is what we think is going to happen, and if you don't do that, it better work, and if it doesn't, you're going to have to answer for what you thought or why you did what you thought was right there. Because the numbers don't back up what you decided. So if it doesn't work, you better have a damn good answer. So basically, do what you want, but if you don't do what we say, you're in trouble. So that also leaves them the leeway to say this was fully on Schneider. We gave him all the information, then he made the call, which it's still a front office decision at that point.
How much of this, though, is just pure
hearsay.
speculation?
So, I mean, a good amount, but I know for sure that's a lot of how the Yankees operate because Brian Cashman has said stuff like that about Aaron Boone in the past, which is, in interviews where he says, look, he's allowed to go with his gut, but if it doesn't work, I'm going to have him in my office the next day and he's going to have to explain himself. Like he said basically those words. I'd assume that's how a lot of these front offices work. That's maybe a bit of extrapolation from something that I know to be true. So call it unfair all you want, but I think that's how these things kind of go. And that being said, the issue that I have again goes back to just not managing the human side of baseball, which is like you have a guy who's dealing. Maybe the splits don't matter as much. Maybe the second time or third time through stats don't matter as much in a playoff game where a guy is going off pure adrenaline and it's not a regular season game. And this is why people always say the playoffs are a crapshoot. So then why are you still managing or making decisions based off data that might not necessarily apply. It's just I get very frustrated when teams don't believe in a player who's on a heater. Let's say they're like 3 for 7 in their last couple games, and then they give them, they sit him down or something when they could, or like they pinch hit for him because they don't like the lefty righty split, stuff like that. They're like, it's it bothers you, or it bothers me that it's the human side of the sport gets ignored, because that is what makes baseball so special, because it's all a series of one-on-one matchups and it's person against person. It's not, our data against your data. So it's that is what bothers me. I wouldn't say I'm an anti-analytic person. I just am pro the human element in baseball.
I have a lot of different thoughts on that. I mean, if you look at Jose Barrios' numbers in particular, you can kind of see why they made the switch the second time around the order, but personally, I think it makes a ton more sense to switch him the third time around the order.
Sure. That's always what the issue is.
Exactly.
And every pitcher has the third time through the order number.
So, had they done that, would it have worked? Had they kept Barrios in and then he'd gotten tagged, would people be saying they should have gone to Kikuchi? On the flip side, had the Kikuchi move worked, what would people be saying about the analytical decision to take him out of the game? Would people be giving it too much credit, putting too much weight onto why maybe would have won the game? We don't know what would have happened.
That's very fair. Another thing, actually, and my brother is not here, but if he was, he would tell you, bringing in a starter out of the pen when they're not used to it in the playoffs is always a terrible idea. I mean, I don't have numbers on this, and I'm sure he doesn't either, but the amount of times that you have seen a starter come in relief, not in a clean inning when the guy's on base or something, like in the middle of an inning, it just doesn't work. It's just not what they're built to do. It's not what they're made to do, and baseball is so mental that if you shake up a guy's routine, just the mental state that they enter the game in, especially pitchers who are notoriously creatures of habit, I mean, it's just you're begging for trouble. So, I mean, that's very humanitarian, I guess, is the word that I'm looking for, or I don't know. It's a different kind of analytic. It really is. It's like it's just. I mean, the human side cannot be thrown out, like especially
anthropological,
sure. Which I was going to minor in if I declared it. I think I had the credits to do it. So there you go. That's why I
had
so
the
much.
Credits to minor in politics.
We just didn't do it. But yeah. So anyway, I think that's kind of why I get frustrated and why I kind of have a soft spot for the old guy who's like, why don't they bunt no more? It's like, it's like, well, baseball's fun. It's supposed to be fun. It's not Stratomatic baseball. It's, it's not made to be, just played out the night before in a spreadsheet, which is, as cliche gets, but you get the idea. But it's, it's the same old, another cliche, having a feel for the game. Barrios is pitching well. Maybe he can get out of this. He walks one guy and then you pull him. It's just not a good look. And you know what? All results aside, it's just the look itself is not good because they pay him a lot of money. They pay Barrios a shit ton of money. Why not be the Rays then and just have all these guys who you don't have to go out and pay a shit ton of money? Why? If I'm the owner of the team, that's what I'm asking the GM. Why are we paying Barrios $20-something million if you're going to pull him? Because we have him to pitch 6 innings in a playoff game. That's why he's here. I don't know. It kind of undermines the value of the player when you break it down to that kind of, that degree.
And it also raises a question of what mismanagement is at this point, because the game is constantly changing so much. And like we're saying, analytics, whatever you want to make of that, data, advanced data, like the numbers that these teams have that we don't, are going to be a part of the game forever. So like handling that,
not going away.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Get used to it. If you're an old curmudgeon, like that's why nobody wants to hear from you. It's not going anywhere. Shut up. Get used to it.
Well, it's not. It isn't going anywhere. But like that, then that means that the application of those numbers becomes the actual management itself.
Yes.
So when we're talking about what Schneider did, like it's not that he did something that like doesn't align with the game, or that he did something like that was unsacred, or whatever. It's just that he mismanaged, or the front office mismanaged.
They had a bad read.
Yeah. Or did they? Did it just not work? because like Endgame
I mean,
isn't.
yeah,
Results.
but you
isn't
could always argue
necessarily-
shit like that in
Yeah,
baseball.
of
Always
course.
going back as long as you want. Was it just a bad idea or did it not work? Like that's the question that you could have asked after the 1923 World Series about a certain move. I don't have an example of a shitty pitching change in the 1923 World Series, but you get my point. It's like the way that a team analyzes its data now. Like the Astros clearly have something, some kind of way that they are looking into things that other teams are missing, because they consistently just win with any combination of players. Losing superstars doesn't matter. They're still winning. I struggle with that too, though, because that also could just be talent. I mean, like, at what point, like, their players get paid a shit ton more than other players because they're more talented than them. So, like, at what point do we just say, hey, the more talented team won? Like, it comes down to talent. And if you have a more talented team, you have a more athletic team, you have a more gifted team, you're going to win. So, I mean, that's part of it too, which is also another reason why people get frustrated with teams dumpster diving for the exit velo sweetheart or whatever. It's like, well, can they hit? It's like, they hit the ball hard. Can they hit? It's not the question. It's like it's there's a lot of shifting goalposts right now that I think baseball has to reckon with itself.
Some of the biggest stories from around the National League, the Arizona Diamondbacks took 2 games from the Milwaukee Brewers. Good call to Mr. Brody on Game 1 with the Brandon Pfaadt-led Arizona Diamondbacks clutching victory from Corbin Burns and the Milwaukee Brewers.
Yes,
and
sir.
then Game 2, no Brandon Woodruff. Diamondbacks took that one handily. And then they went in and swept the Dodgers, too.
Okay, so do you want to touch on that? Because I have some thoughts on that.
As do I.
Yeah.
It's truly shocking to see the state of the Los Angeles Dodgers pitching in this series. Clayton Kershaw had to go in Game 1 because the team did not have any other
They had
options.
nothing left.
Walker Buehler is still not back from Tommy John surgery in 2022. Julio Urias was arrested for the second time for domestic violence.
Bye.
Right before
out.
the end of his contract.
Go
so
away.
he's done in Major League Baseball.
You'd hope.
And yeah, Clayton Kershaw started Game 1 not completely healthy, and it showed. He gave up 6 runs, did not even make it out of the first inning. They had 5 on him before he even recorded an out. The Diamondbacks took that game 11-2. The easy, lazy maybe narrative there is playoff Kershaw. For Clayton Kershaw's entire career, he's been criticized and derided for not pitching well in the postseason, not being able to come up big. Whether or not that has been deserved has been up for debate over. He said himself before the series, like, guys know it isn't lost on me that I've had these opportunities that other guys have not had at any other points in their career. Certainly a guy who would rather fail on the big stage than not be there at all, but goddamn did he ever.
Yeah. So this guy has 39 playoff games, which is a very significant sample size. He has a 4.49 ERA in the postseason, and if you know anything about Clayton Kershaw, you know that his career ERA in the regular season is sub 2.5. It's 2.48.
Genuinely hilarious.
The guy is amazing in the regular season. He's known. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, hands down.
Greatest pitcher I have ever seen in my life.
His
in his
peak
prime.
will never be replicated, I think, in our lifetime, to be
Well,
honest. That guy, I don't know. I mean, maybe I guess that's a bit much to say, but I mean, those years in 13, 14, 15, 16 were incredible.
2010's Clayton Kershaw is peak pitcher.
Yes.
Doesn't get better.
But, and that being said, the last time he was remotely good in the playoffs was 2013. So it's, as tired as that trope is that Kershaw doesn't perform in the playoffs, it's also true. I mean, he just, last year, he was a little bit better. He didn't give up more than 3 runs in his start, but this year, 0.1 innings, 6 earnings, 6 hits, 6 runs. No strikeouts.
Just not pretty.
I guess no strikeouts, only one out, but yeah, not what you want. Like looking at the numbers though, it's more than just like an easy argument to make. There's a significant amount of data to back that up.
Sure.
That the guy just does not do well in the playoffs.
Bobby Miller started game 2. Rookie. He did not fare much better. Gave up 3 runs.
Before
in the
we get off
first.
Kershaw, do you think he's retiring?
No, I don't think so.
He said he's thinking about it. I don't think he will either, but he's
I
getting
don't
up
think he
there.
goes out on this. No way.
No, me neither, but who knows? He's 35. That's not that old, I guess, but in pitcher years it is, but
I think Clayton Kershaw comes back, and I think he tries to adapt his pitching arsenal to a different kind of just to a different approach. Like,
and he's already done that though. He doesn't throw hard. He's not a strikeout pitcher.
but he's gonna have to continue adapting. You know,
guess,
it's
yeah.
like you're gonna have to keep making changes each year at this point in his career if he doesn't
But he
have
had a
that stuff
great
anymore.
He had a great regular season again.
I
so
know.
like it's
But was
yeah,
he
I
healthy
don't
in
know.
this start? I mean, again, like this is, we're judging it
another
off
thing,
of
too.
one inning. We can't say that he's going to retire on
a
that.
third of an inning.
Yeah, like I don't know. It's
It's not fair because the
The-
dude is a first ballot Hall of Famer, so it really is not fair.
the
But it's
comparison that I would want to make was to Madison Bumgarner, because
Sure.
those are probably the two most dominant left-handed pitchers of the 2010s,
Yeah.
certainly in the National League West. And Bumgarner's a guy who, if you don't remember, he started this season
famously.
in the Arizona Diamondbacks rotation.
That's true.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
And he was gone within 2 or 3 starts
Yeah.
because
He was
other
terrible.
Yeah, but like other teams' hitters were saying that they were approaching him like they would a position player on the mound.
Oh, wow, that's awful.
And Bumgarner, like, famously was so hard-headed. He would never
Yeah.
adapt anything. He wouldn't
Right.
change his arsenal. He would just assume this has worked for me my entire life. It will continue to work. Bumgarner, I think, is the only example of a pitcher that I've seen come in relief and then like truly have the outing for the ages in that 2014 World Series. Like, he's kind of the outlier there. But just a guy who his head was not built to adapt and to compete in a changing sport in which he was no longer stuff dominant. And now he's just out of the league. He's going to go off
Yeah.
riding his bike or whatever. I
His
don't know.
horse, dude. He's a horse guy.
Dude, it's crazy.
But
yeah.
the thing with Bumgarner too, and it's funny that you make that comparison. Bumgarner notoriously is one of the he might have one of the best World Series performances by any pitcher that I can remember in recent memory. I mean, like he showing up in 3 games in the World Series, and I think he hit a homer in one of those games or something. Like that might be wrong. I just remember him hitting a lot of homers, but I think he did. But that's not the point. He is the opposite of Kershaw in that he is famous for showing up in the playoffs. And it's interesting how how things change.
Yeah, I mean they're very different
how they don't.
pitchers, both in terms of career and numbers, or just like I'm saying in mentality. Because I
Yes.
think that the reason Clayton Kershaw still has a chance to come back and to succeed is the fact that he, despite being one of the best pitchers of all time, is willing to change how he pitches and how he approaches hitters.
And that he had a 2.46 ERA this season.
Yeah, that helps.
That'll help you.
Yeah,
Um,
I think he has at least 2 more years in him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. On the Dodgers, I said so. I wrote out like little like storylines for each team out of the DSs, but we kind of lumped these in with the wild cards.
Sure.
But with the Dodgers, I said waste of time, talent, and money. 'Cause, like this is it's unbelievable that this has been another year where this team makes a first round exit. They have won the NL West 10 times in the last 11 years. The one time that they didn't, they finished in second, 1 game out of first, and that was, I think, 2 years ago. In those 10 division wins, they've made 5 first-round exits, and now this makes 2 in a row this year. Wow. They have won at least 1 series 6 times, which included the Fakakta COVID season, which is how I wrote it in my notes, but I like the way that sounded. But they are just infuriatingly inconsistent and just don't they don't deliver. Like, I mean, this is also Mookie and Freddie Freeman went 1 for 21 in this series,
God damn.
which is, I mean, that's atrocious. You need your stars to show up, and
That's
Freddie
obscene.
Freeman is a good playoff performer. We know that. Mookie Betts, I don't know his numbers. I would need to look into it. I didn't. I should have. But like the guys who showed up in this series were Kike Hernandez and Will Smith. Like, if you're the Dodgers, you can't say at the end of it, well, at least we had Kike show up. Like, that's not how you want to exit your season.
No.
So, I mean, they kind of need to I mean, but actually, I was about to say they need to readjust. Do they? Because it works so well in the regular season. They win hundreds of games every year, and it falls apart.
Yeah, the Dodgers are such an interesting case because I almost made the point earlier that I think teams that treat the playoffs like a crapshoot are always the
They
teams
lose.
that get bounced. They
The ones
always
who-
lose. They
the
don't
ones who
treat
you
it.
never would hear say that, like the Braves, the Phillies, the Astros, they're the ones who are in the final 4, 5, 6 teams every year.
I mean, that doesn't apply to the Dodgers. Like they
Yeah.
create they have these dynastic rosters every year. They have multiple MVP candidates on their team. Like, and then this year especially, like they weren't even competitive in the playoffs.
No.
And like we said, it was because of their
It's the starting pitching,
woes. They
yes,
lost
but-
everything. Like,
but
you
the
know, it
offense
is
didn't
what it
show up
is.
either.
No, it didn't. And like we said, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, both of those MVP candidates did not show up at all in a series against Arizona Diamondbacks pitching, which you would expect those guys to be able to handle.
Yeah. And speaking of the Diamondbacks, I mean, this is a team that is extremely young. They are the Orioles of the NL, and their pitching is, I mean, even more suspect than the Orioles was going in, I would think. So, I mean, if
I think theirs was a little better than the Orioles going in.
maybe, but I mean, it's, you know, it's close either way, and it's comparable. So, I mean, but then again, you have, you know, Corbin Carroll shows up and proves that he's, you know, that guy. Like, he can be, he is for real. Like, he is for real when it comes to being a star. I mean, Christian Walker and Gabriel Moreno had huge series. So, like, it's, you know, it comes down to the guys that you need to showing up most of the time. Like every year when there's a team who does not meet the expectations that they had set out for them, that's kind of what you can point to. Well, the guys that we needed to show up didn't. Like that every year, that's how it kind of goes. So if you want to win the playoffs, you need your guys to show up. And, you know, the Diamondbacks did, the Dodgers didn't. The Brewers, that team, I said it in the preview for the wild card, they really needed to win that first game because I said if the Diamondbacks smell blood in the water, which they did immediately, that series is over because the Diamondbacks are young and hungry, and the Brewers are fighting to maintain any kind of semblance of respect in the league after a lot of early exits in the playoffs, and it just didn't go their
They
way.
were really
again.
teams going in opposite directions.
Yes. Yeah. And it's, you know, and I, you know, not to toot my own horn, but I was right. they beat the shit out of Corbin
Corbin Burns.
Corbin Burns.
Yeah.
And that was it. So it's, you know, it's you know, it all, like, playoff narratives are always based on the star's performance.
Speaking of playoff narratives, Rangers-Orioles?
Rangers-Orioles. So on the Rangers, I have just the simple line I said earlier. This lineup is here to mash, and the Orioles will be back, and Gunnar is ready. Which, yeah, that was kind of a rough series. It was a little sad, to be honest, because, I mean, the Orioles, I wanted to see them put up a better fight. It is what it is because, again, they're young, and I truly believe they will be back. This team is so good.
They absolutely will be back.
But it's, you know, but I mean, again, some of your guys showed up. Gunnar Henderson hit 500 in the series, which that's what you want. Aaron Hicks, reclamation project.
I know.
He had a 5 RBI game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. That's what you want to see. Like, if you're an Orioles fan, you feel good about this year for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an
you
O's
just need
fan,
more
you
starting
feel
pitching.
fantastic about the year. It, like you just said, starting pitching was the problem. Kyle Bradish got tagged. Grayson Rodriguez
got
got
lit up.
destroyed, which
Yeah.
really, his fastball got crushed.
Yep.
And shockingly, their trade deadline acquisition, Jack Flaherty, didn't move the needle. Wow,
Yeah,
who could
who
have
saw
seen that coming?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't a competitive series, like we said. The Rangers have swept the playoffs thus far. They are 5-0. They dominated really all 3 games of that series. And if you're the Orioles management, especially right now, you need to be looking to seriously commit to 2024 and beyond, because
You need to go get pitching.
This is when it needs to happen. You need to extend the core. You need to sign. You need to lock up Adley long term.
Yes.
Lock up Gunnar Henderson. Pick a few of Kobe Mayer, Holton Cowser, certainly Jackson Holiday when that time comes. I mean, you've got options. Like, you are going to be able to build a core full of young first rounders who all have massive upside.
You could be the Braves.
You nailed all of these picks. Truly.
You could be the Braves.
With a financial commitment, they could really be something.
Yeah.
And the main part of that, aside from extending their current players, is going to be bringing in a few pitchers. We saw this season the Orioles had the second lowest payroll in the league. That certainly needs to change, I think, if they're going to be able to put up a fight in the
At the same
playoffs.
time, most of that is just because all their guys are, I think they're still in the renewal stage. I don't even think they're to arbitration yet.
Yeah.
So it's like,
that's absolutely
that'll
why.
help. But yeah,
you still need to make
leaves you a lot of room.
Complementary signings, to fill out.
Go get Blake Snell.
I mean, Blake Snell, they could go trade for Dylan Cease. They could trade for any pitcher on the market. They could trade for anybody, truly. Like, they have the prospects to trade for anybody that they want. Like, they can build.
Also try to attract one of these Japanese pitchers who's coming over, right? Like, there's, their starting pitching options this offseason are actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Very top heavy. There's, I think, like 3 guys, but outside of that's not great. But, go get one of those. Like, that's what you need. Badly, in the worst way.
I mean, I was a little bit worried going into the season when they had stopped comparing themselves to the Astros and started comparing themselves to the Rays and the Guardians, that maybe that meant that the financial commitment was not coming. It certainly did not come this year.
Yeah.
And like we said, you can turn on the faucet really at any moment, and when they do that, they have put themselves in a position where I don't think they even really need to sign many bats. Maybe they get one, but you sign 2 quality starters, which really is like the bare fucking minimum for a financial commitment to a team that is actually contending. And the sky is the limit for the Orioles. They could be here for the next 10 years.
Truly.
Every year. The only thing standing in the way is we don't know how long these players are going to be there, who they're going to let walk, when, if they're going to make any, I don't know. I'm speculating at this point. They've done a great job of building the core thus far. Now is the time when it's going to take a little bit of money.
Sure. Moving on to the Rangers, this series they just dominated offensively. 4 OPSs in the DS over 1,200 in that lineup. 4: Seager, Garver, Evan Carter, and Josh Young. So
Evan Carter's a guy that I could talk about all day.
That guy is fun to watch. Just that team. You have this dude. You complement these free agent acquisitions in Seager, in Semien, excuse me. And then you have a guy like Evan Carter or a guy like Josh Young who show up and just absolutely ball out. And all of a sudden, I mean, you have a team that is built the same way as the 90s Yankees. Like, it truly. It's maybe not to that extent, but that is how the Yankees built their dynasties, with a very healthy crop of talented and young offseason free agent acquisitions, and you have a very strong crop of prospects who show up and actually hit. That's it. That's all you do. Adolis Garcia had a huge series, a pair of homers. Jordan Montgomery, speaking of which, in acquisition world, Jordan Montgomery is all of a sudden turning into like a dominant postseason pitcher with, the guy was untouchable. Again, it's getting kind of freaky with this guy who we watched a ton of, and he was always kind of predictable, is I think like the nicest way that you could put it. It's just, he was good, never great, Never bad. He would just show up. He would give you 5 2/3.
I was just gonna say 5 2/3.
5 2/3 with 3 runs earned. That's
Yep.
it. That's a Monty start. And all of a sudden he's throwing 7 shutout in the playoffs. Like that's amazing. Also, Bruce Bochy he's a winning manager. He was the manager of the '98 Padres, which I did not know that.
I didn't
That was
know
a
that.
team that apparently had no business being where they were, outside of Tony Gwynn. But he has been around forever. He was the Giants manager in the early 2010s, as we know, and he got a lot out of those rosters. It's just the guy gets a lot out of his team.
He knows how to win.
He knows how to win. So, and he's and he knows the game well. So, this Rangers team is more serious than I think I ever gave them credit for. I think that you ever gave them credit for. And
Definitely.
It's going to be kind of scary seeing what they do in this next series against another juggernaut.
Absolutely. I think that my thoughts on the Rangers have like switched up so much over the past 2 years because when they made those Seager and Semien off-season signings, I was kind of left scratching my head a little bit. I was like, hey, 2 shortstops for this team that
I know.
we're not
Yeah.
really sure
Who are you, the
if
Red
their,
Sox?
like window is open right now.
Yeah.
And then like last year it did not happen for them, and I wasn't super confident in the future of their franchise. Like I knew about Josh Young, but he had that shoulder injury at the time, and Evan Carter kind of popped up on the prospect radar around this time last year, maybe a little bit earlier, like in the summer, but that guy has just shot up lists, and this postseason has proved with absolute good reason. This is a guy who draws a lot of comparisons to Kyle Tucker. This is an amazing pure hitter. His eye is perfect. I think that the playoff announcers said like 8 different times that his minor league nickname was Full Count because he would always be in a full count.
Full Count Carter. It's his nickname officially in Baseball Reference. Fun fact.
There have been some
23 games, by the way, in the regular season.
unbelievable.
23, and he shows up and he masses in the playoffs.
He shows up. I think he reached base 11 of 13 times, something
Unbelievable.
like that. My
Yeah.
God. A guy walks more than he strikes out. I cannot say enough good things about Evan Carter. He is going to be a perennial all-star, I think.
He's got
for
a
the
hit
next
in
10
every
years.
single game in the playoffs.
God,
3 strikeouts.
sky is the limit.
Holy shit. Wait a minute. 6 walks, 3 strikeouts.
I went into this year's playoffs thinking that the Rangers would be my 2024 World Series pick when they maybe have DeGrom back, probably
Yeah.
have back Scherzer, and then they're also going to add Wyatt Langford into their lineup, which is truly just absurd that they have Wyatt Langford. Like
Yeah.
people haven't reckoned with that yet, but that's
Well,
going
once
to
he
happen
shows
next
up.
year, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah. This Rangers team is scary, and I
might have been a year late. Maybe they can win it this year.
I don't like this team.
Me neither.
I don't like the Rangers, and I don't like giving them any flowers, but they deserve it, and they're forcing me to acknowledge how good they are right now. Astros Twins. So for the Twins, very simple. Royce Lewis has a new middle name in Toronto because that dude killed the Blue Jays in the wild card series. That was really fun to watch. And for the Astros, death, taxes, and the Astros winning in October. There are only 3 certainties, and it's one of them. They find a way. We can start with the Astros because they're moving on. It's just, it's getting infuriating at this point. Like, you have a guy in Jose Abreu as a good example who had a terrible season, and all of a sudden the playoffs roll around, and he finally decides to show up. He hit 3 homers, and it's just like out of nowhere, it's they just find a way to put it all together at the perfect time, and Yordan Alvarez continues to be terrifying all year long, but especially in the playoffs. He hits somehow. My dad always used to say about David Ortiz and Manny Ramirez when they were Red Sox, whenever the Yankees would be winning by 3, would be winning by 4, they'd hit a 5-run homer. That's like the kind of stuff that Yordan Alvarez does. It's just it's amazing. The guy just is the king of clutch, and he lives for the moment, apparently. And
2 more
just
home
can hit
runs
anyone.
for him in the series.
Yep, 2 more, and I think lead takers. I think both of them.
That game 1 home run. The Astros had gone up 5-0, and then the Twins came back. They got a 3-run home run, and then Royce Lewis came up. He went back-to-back to bring them within one, and then the next inning, Jordan came in, hit a home run, and that was kind of just the backbreaker. Yeah,
he's the hammer that hits the nail in the coffin.
Exactly.
Also, so with the Astros, the thing to pay attention to with them more than ever this year is they might have the best rotation left out of any of the playoff teams. Verlander, Valdez, Javier, and Urquidy. I think it was Christian Javier had a pretty bad start. I don't think Framber looked great, but it's still. I mean, when those guys are on, I mean that's 4 guys that I don't think there's a lot of other teams left who you could say, hey, here's 4 pitchers that I trust in a playoff game.
I'm not afraid of Urquidy. But
I'm not afraid of Urquidy, but
sure.
he can. He's done it before,
Yeah.
so it's kind of scary. And then they're back into the bullpen. They have a formula of Neris, Abreu, and Presley, which they went to twice in this series for the 7, 8, 9, and it just works. So
they just
be
don't
afraid.
need left-handed pitchers in their bullpen. They straight up
guess
don't
not.
care.
Yeah,
it's really strange.
doesn't matter.
I've never seen anybody have so much success with only righties in the pen.
Yeah.
It's wild. The Twins did have a very dominant game 2. They did take that game on the road. Unfortunately, they could not get anything done at home. Their pitching gave up leads super early in both games. Jose Abreu had a huge 3-run home run in game 3, and they just couldn't get it done. None of these series are going to be reaching game 5 as of a couple minutes ago because Braves-Phillies...
Oh, well, real quick on the
sorry.
Twins, I just want to say, too, much like the Orioles, you have a lot to be happy about after the season. I think a lot of people didn't really... Whether or not they believed in the Twins doesn't matter. Nobody gave a shit about them. And Carlos Correa showed up and, kind of reminded you why you want to pay big bucks for the big name. And, he had a really good series. And he played great in the wild card, too. So, he is, he's Carlos Correa. He's a villain, and he likes doing that. Pablo Lopez looked fantastic in the playoffs. And again, another guy, acquisition, who showed up and looked great. So there's a lot of reasons to kind of be excited, but this is still... and Royce Lewis looks amazing. Like, that guy is probably going to be around in Minnesota for, I don't know, the next 12, 14 years. You can hope. So the thing with the Twins is, again, starting pitching beyond, Joe Ryan kind of needs some work. But there's enough there. There are enough pieces there to think that, hey, maybe this team can compete. And being in the AL Central, you should be able to win 90-something games next year, slide right back in and maybe, do the same thing again, but hopefully this time get past the divisional.
You would certainly think that the Twins will be back next year.
Yeah. I don't think there's anybody in the Central who could compete for that division title.
Not really.
And they're not going to have a wild card team. So anyway, go on.
Yeah, then that'll bring us up to our final series, which just wrapped up as we've been recording this episode. The Philadelphia Phillies knock out the Atlanta Braves in 4 games.
Yes, sir. The Braves, Dodgers East, or can't slay the Philly Beast. It's hard to say if they are just a team who doesn't show up in the playoffs or if Philly just has their number because it's now 2 years in a row getting knocked out by them. After another historically great regular season, they just don't put it together in the playoffs.
With an all-time lineup, one that truly rivaled that of the 1927 Yankees, people were saying.
Which
1 through 9, they had a team OPS plus of 130 or something insane.
And they're still young, which is why I also think it's too early to say if this is a team who can't play in the playoffs or if it's just that Philly knows how to beat them because, they ran into the same team twice. So whether or not that you believe in a team just having your number or whatever, it's we need to see them lose to another team and not meet expectations before you can kind of fully say that that's the narrative with the Braves. But their starting pitching, again, this is the same story as a lot of the other teams that we've talked about. Starting pitching was unreliable. Bryce Elder got really messed up. Max Fried historically is on a very similar track to Clayton Kershaw. The dude just cannot pitch in the playoffs. He
Although
has
he
a 4.6.
does have a World Series ring.
He does, but he has a 4.6 ERA career in the playoffs. And this year again, nothing, nothing great. 4 innings, 3 earns in the DS this year. In the World Series, he pitched better, although not in Game 2 in 2021. 7 hits.
When
6
else would he have
earned,
pitched in the World Series?
5. He had two starts in that
So
World Series.
he had one good start, one bad one.
6 innings, no
Okay.
runs in Game 5. Or
That
game
one I
6.
remember, yeah.
Yes, that's the one that you remember. You don't remember Game 2 where he gave up 6 runs in 5 innings.
I think I remember that too. But
Well, either way.
fair enough.
You get my point. Also, that whole playoffs, the game before that, 5 earned runs, 4 innings.
Yeesh.
Just not. The guy has a track record of at least at best being unreliable, and he's your I guess your 2 starter. So
I think he's the one. I don't know,
well,
2.
Strider.
yeah.
Yeah, but and Strider had a good series, and a good playoff run in general. Austin Riley is amazing. That dude is really fun to watch. He had a really good series. And Michael Harris, too, might be the best center fielder in the National League. So it's Mike 2. In the National League, I say. Corbin Carroll, I think, is the only guy giving him a run for that.
Corbin
title.
Carroll is in the National League.
Yeah.
What?
I said Michael Harris might be the best center fielder in the National League.
Oh, I thought you said. I thought you said he might be the best center fielder in baseball, and then you were clarifying with, well, at least in the National League, Corbin Carroll might have him beat. And then I
No.
was like, wait.
I'm saying Corbin Carroll.
Okay, I
run
see.
for his
I was
money.
like, what the hell?
But yeah, that guy makes amazing plays. And he's got a hell of an arm. Phillies, on the other hand, the kings of the shoulder chip. You don't want to fuck around and talk shit about this team because they will make you pay for it. If you count them out, they will make you pay for it. And Bryce Harper is the best thing to happen to Philly since someone figured out that cheese tastes good on steak. Those
All
are my
they had
notes
to
on the
do
Phillies.
is give him the fucking money.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
That was it. It's look, Bryce Harper has proved yet again that the guy loves the spotlight and he knows how to perform in it. And Nick Castellanos tonight had a 2-homer game. So if you're a Philly fan, been relatively frustrated with the fact that Castellanos was brought here to be like the other bat, and he finally is kind of putting it together.
If you're a Philly fan, you aren't listening to this podcast.
That's a
You're
good
out
point.
like
Getting hammered and eating horse shit.
I was gonna say committing hate crime against the Braves mascot.
That's a good point. This is
Eating a stop sign.
yeah, that's exactly it. They have the formula figured out. Their bullpen is scary good. Their starters are all good enough. Honestly, I don't know what their numbers were in this series. I should look into that.
Yeah, we'll do it.
We can take a look
tomorrow.
another time.
Just ended like an hour ago.
Yes, yeah. Not a lot of time to go back and look back. But, man, Trey Turner is showing up now. You all decided to give him the old Philly
That
City
was one of my
love
favorite
hug.
stories of the year. Was when they started
worked
giving him
out.
ovations and he was like struggling. He had
Yeah,
like, the
man.
worst year of his career by far, and
Yep.
then he just turns it all around. Like the
It's
vibes
cool.
in Philly are amazing
And
right
see,
now. I kind of want them to win.
That's the human element that I'm talking about. That analytics has. They can't not account for a city giving you an ovation until you start hitting, and then it works.
Yeah, I mean,
like, that's crazy. That's so cool.
I think
Man.
ultimately it's going to be. I think teams have to perfectly balance data with the human element.
Oh,
of the game.
we've litigated
Yeah.
this enough, but I'm with you. But anyway, yeah. Thoughts on the Braves or the Phillies?
That's pretty much it. I think we've covered it all very well. The Braves beat the Phillies in 4. The Astros beat the Twins in 4. The Rangers swept the Orioles. And the Diamondbacks swept the Dodgers.
Yep.
So those are your 4 teams left. And those series are going to start up on Sunday
Yes,
for
sir.
the National League and Monday for the American League.
Should we move on to predictions?
I'm goddamn excited. Yeah, all right, why not? Just all off the cuff?
Yeah,
All
off the
right,
cuff.
off
Why
the
not?
cuff.
So you got the Rangers and the Astros, the Battle O Texas, and you got the Phillies and the Diamondbacks, the Battle of Red Teams.
Okay. My off the cuff prediction is that we have a World Series rematch of the Astros and the Phillies.
Sure. Yeah. I
That's a little boring, but I'm going to go with it anyway.
I think the Phillies walk through the Diamondbacks, to be honest. I think the Diamondbacks are too young. But the Astros-Rangers series, I think, is more of a toss-up than it gets credit for being, because I think everyone is
agree.
just like terrified of the Astros and is very well familiar with the power that they have in October, as I talked about earlier. But I honestly, I feel like the Rangers have the juice. I feel like they have it more than the Astros. I'm going to say we get a Rangers-Phillies World Series.
All right.
And I
would love
do
that.
think that both of these series go at least 6 games.
Nice.
Yeah.
I would like that.
Actually, no. Phillies in 5, Rangers in 7.
I'm okay. I'm kind of with that, to be honest, but I'm going to stick with my Astros prediction just because I already said it.
Sure. Want to give a game count?
Yeah, I'll go with Astros in 6 and Phillies in 4. Fuck it, they sweep. Why not?
Damn. All right.
We'll get Bull.
Fair enough.
All right.
All right. So
I'd
you
say
heard
that's
it here
gonna do
first.
it for us this
Phillies
week.
in 5, Rangers in 7. That's what's going to happen because I was right in the wild card series. All right.
All right. We love that little boost of confidence.
Oh, yeah.
To anybody out there, please go patreon.com/Mudville. We just started it last week. You would truly be getting in on the ground floor. You don't even
Yeah.
have to give us money if you don't
Just
want
subscribe or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, follow us, do all that.
Most of our
We'll be
stuff is
putting
going to
everything
be
there.
free to access. We just
Yeah.
wanted a place to put everything.
Also, I know I've been saying this now for probably about 3 weeks, but we do now have a solidified plan to start the New York Sports Podcast next week. So keep an eye out for that episode with me and my brother Morgan. who's
Beautiful.
a Mudville regular at this point. So that will be coming out towards the end of next week.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for listening. This has been the Mudville Podcast. I have been one of your hosts, Nolan Rabine.
I've been the other one, Brody Staub.
Thank you very much.
Catch you next week.